Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. We've got a great crew here today to talk about Cheap Trick. We're doing our top 10 favorite albums of Cheap Trick. Let me introduce the folks here. We got all the way from Scotland, Mr. Stephen Reid from the UK connection and in the Prague seat. We got Guitar Hack from Canada. He's come all the way from the Fun House, also from Canada, Mr. Martin Popoff. And our resident power pop and hard rock and metal specialist himself, Mr. Jim Bacchi. What's up, gentlemen?
You doing?
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us. Excellent.
Thank
We
you.
were just chatting before we started taping that this was a really hard assignment because Cheap Trick have a lot of really strong albums, 20 albums deep, some great live albums, lots of collections and all that sort of thing. But we have painstakingly listened to and picked out our 10 favorites. We're going to rank them in order of preference, starting from number 10 all the way to number 1. During each turnaround, we're each going to give 3. So we'll start over in the UK and we'll work our way through Canada, California, and New York. So Stephen, why don't you kick us off with your number 10, 9, and 8?
Okay, well, if you're going to start a show, you're as well to do it in a way that will probably get no support whatsoever. Okay, and no agreement. I would guess that there are not many people have got lap of luxury in their top 10. Okay, there you go. Yeah, an immediate shake of the head from Martin of what is this madman talking about? Yeah, and I absolutely, completely understand that. I totally get it. I know that this is a corporate commercial AOR rock album that sounds like everything except Cheap Trick. I absolutely get that, but you've got to remember I was 15 when this album came out. Okay, so this was where I started with Cheap Trick. This is the first album that I got by them. I had already bought The Flame on 7-inch single, played it to death. I was into this scene, kind of still am, let's be honest. Okay, admittedly, I then went and bought all the old albums and thought, okay, this is what it's about. But that doesn't stop this from holding a special place in my heart. I mean, I can live without the Elvis cover. I don't like their version of Don't Be Cruel at all. But I like the Bad English meets John Mellencamp of No Mercy. That works for me, that kind of thing. I like the slightly punchier Let Go. I do like The Flame. I understand how cynical it maybe comes across from where the band had been before. I think it's a great song, well executed. Ironically, the only song on the whole thing that's written just by members of the band, or at least Robin and Tom, Never Had a Lot to Lose. It's probably one of the worst on the record. But I love the echoing, All We Need Is a Dream. The vocals on that are fantastic. And I absolutely get that Richie Zito's production, and in truth, a lot of the songwriting may not be for everybody, but as corporate rock 80s sellouts go, this is one of the best of them. Do you know, the main problem is, as I said earlier, it just happens not to sound an awful lot like Cheap Trick. Put that to the side, this is really good. Okay, so now that I've lost everybody.
I don't disagree with you. I like that album too a lot.
Thank you. There you go. A sympathy vote, I think, but that's fine. I'll take it. Okay, so number 9 for me is 1983's Next Position, Please. Yeah, this was produced by Todd Rundgren. It could well be a Todd Rundgren album, let's be honest. And it was interesting doing this exercise because, yeah, lots of bands have got albums where you think, record company pressure, or the producer had a large say in what was going on here. I don't know if many bands have it as much and for as long a period as Cheap Trick did. So, you know, you can really hear that somebody at the label is kind of going, we've got a really good idea for you. But this happens to be, in my opinion, one of the better examples. It plays to Rundgren's strengths because he pulls that kind of pop sensibility out of the band. I really like the whole feel of the album. I love the Roy Orbison feel on Borderline. I mean, I don't love Here anymore, which I want to say wrong every single time. It's very of its time, but it works. And the title track, Next Position, Please, that is one of my favourite songs by the band. You know, the verse doesn't quite know whether it's a punk anthem or an ABBA hit, but the chorus is just so catchy. And for me, it's the blueprint from which a lot of bands like the Wild Hearts kind of went, oh, I know what we could do. You can hear that influence that's kind of come through much later on in bands that technically kind of sound nothing like this. Do you know? So, yeah, lots to love here. You Talk Too Much, the off-kilter Rundgren pop shimmer of Heaven's Falling, I really like that. I like the fact that the more recent reissues have put what I would only describe as the awful cover of the Motors Dancing the Night Away as a bonus track. It's kind of hidden it away. It's right in the middle of the original vinyl. It's terrible. But let's move on from there.
Wait. You didn't mention I Can't Take It. It's like one of my favorite Cheap Trick songs. It was a hit from that record. Well, here it was.
Well, but certainly wasn't a hit here because they didn't have
song.
hits here, but it is a great song. Yes,
That's
absolutely.
a great song.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my number 8 takes me to 1997. It takes me to Cheap Trick. Yeah, so 20 years after their self-titled album, they released a self-titled album. I hate it when a band does that, but okay. I do understand though, the cover's black and white. We're nodding back to the start here. They're hitting reset in many ways, and the attitude, that kind of more punky attitude, it's darker, there's a grittier approach, it comes through here too. You can understand why they're kind of saying, let's look back to those kind of days. And I think it really kind of points to where the band were really well at this point. It was their first album not on a major label, and you kind of got the feeling that things were on a downward spiral at this point. But I think it results in a really authentic sounding album. It's their first, to me, for probably well over a decade. It doesn't feel like somebody had said, we've got an idea of what you should sound like here. There doesn't appear to be an agenda. This is just good songs put together. It's much more cohesive than a few albums that have come before it. And there's songs like Anytime, Hard to Tell, Shelter, Yeah, Yeah, 8 Miles Low. There's really good material on here. It's just a shame that it seems to have been largely forgotten. Nobody really noticed at the time. So there you go. That's my first 3.
Yeah, good point. All right, Hack, you're up.
All right. So my number 10 is One on One, 1982. No Tom Peterson, but still a pretty good record. This one for me sounds like a real stripped down, tight sounding production by Roy Thomas. Kind of has a like a new wave vibe going, so it's a product of the time. It came out in 82. Some really good songs on it. Highlights, If You Want My Love, great song. Ooh La La's cool rocker with a healthy dose of some saxophone. You don't hear a lot of sax on their stuff. Looking Out for Number One is cool, but She's Tight is it's disturbing but awesome at the same time. It's a very cool song. I like that one a lot. Saturday at Midnight is a little bit of a left turn down a dark alley, and I Want Be Man is it's just some real bad new wave experimentation there. But apart from those two, pretty strong records for me. So that's One on One, 1982. Number 9, we've got Cheap Trick, The Latest. That was the last album they did with Bun E. And the opening track is a song called Sleep Forever, which is just sort of just Robin singing over a backing track. It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful piece of music. There's some really cool, some up-tempo stuff on this, some old sort of vintage sounding Cheap Trick stuff, like When the Lights Are Out, super hooky. Miss Tomorrow is a fantastic song. It's like almost the perfect pop song. Sick Man of Europe is a great rocker, kind of a punky feel to it. California Girl is cool. Every Day Make Me Crazy is also very cool. And then you got those they always have those very Beatley influenced songs on a lot of their records. Like Miracle for me sounds like Imagine. Everybody Knows is another beautiful song. Times of Our Lives is so cool. The highlight on this record though, because these guys can write a really well crafted pop, like a mellow pop song, and the song Smile on this is just absolute perfection. Fantastic lyric, fantastic melody, just Cheap Trick at their mellow best. So the latest 2009 is my number 9, and my number 8 is, and this was mentioned already, Next Position Please, 1983. Really good pop on this. I Can't Take It is a great song, as Jim was mentioning. I Don't Love Her Anymore is cool. Younger Girls, Why Oh Why Oh Why. This is like a very poppy sounding record to me. It sounds like, as Steve was saying, really it's like we want to get on the radio really bad. It sounded like it was totally song wise and production wise, designed to be on radio. Well, a little contrived in that regard, but you know, there's some good pop on this, and it sounds again very, you know, tailored for radio for 1983, right? So
Yeah.
there you go. Next
Who better to do that than Todd Rundgren, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So
Cool.
there you go.
All right, Martin.
Cool. All right. Well, before we get started, I want to mention there's an excellent Cheap Trick book out there by a buddy of mine, Robert Lawson. This is a hardcover. It's just full of all sorts of good stuff like this, and he's done a Nazareth and a Guess Who as well. So it's good research material for coming up with stuff like this. I'm going to start with my number 10 slot is the latest. So yes, the last one with Bun. You know, the funny thing about these later Cheap Trick albums, there's not a lot of variety in the production. They kind of check off all the boxes, but fortunately they have a lot of different boxes. So what I've found is that there's the odd one of these later ones where they just tend to stack up a bunch of songs I don't like on one album, i.e. Special One, and I'm not a fan of it, right? But this one, they stack up a lot of stuff that I do like on it. It is fairly heavy. It's, you know, as good as the production gets these days. You know, I have a little bit of a complaint with their production these days with even the louder rocking stuffs having this sort of sheen of politeness to it where it never sounds particularly heavy anymore. But yeah, there's a Miss Tomorrow, very Beatles-esque. That's strings and synths and stuff on there. Miracle, again, Beatles-esque. As a Hack mentioned, Smile is amazing as well. Sick Man of Europe is one of their later really good heavy tunes for sure. Yeah, there's the Slade cover on there that works pretty good as well. So that's my number 10. Number 9, I'm going with One on One. So this is yes, the Roy Thomas Baker one. I always consider, you know, based you know, somewhat on the album cover looking a little bit like Next Position Please. This is Next Position Please, but not as good. So more on Next Position Please later. Yeah, I like that it's kind of goofy, punky, noisy, kind of tight and urgent. Roy Thomas Baker throws a lot of, you know, maybe there's a little bit of cars he's throwing at it. One way this always one thing this always reminded me of is the goofy Iggy Pop period on the Arista years, you know, Party and that kind of stuff, Soldier. So it's kind of it's kind of yeah, I would say there's a lot of production, but it's kind of like trying to be like new wavy and subversive sort of production on it. But yeah, good album. So that's my number 9. Number 8, I'm just gonna go with another recent one. So the Bang Zoom Crazy Hello album, which same sort of thing. I mean, we got Dax on it now in the band. And same kind of idea where they just happen to line up a whole bunch of songs of a Cheap Trick style that I want to hear, right? And it's usually something that's got to have a lot of melody. If it's mellow and dark at the same time, or in the middle and dark at the same time, not so great. Heavy and dark's a little better. But yeah, I just think there's a lot of good tunes on this. Hearts on the Line, Sing My Blues Away, Roll Me. I believe this is the time. Yeah, I got to go meet these guys downtown Toronto and interview them and get a bunch of stuff signed. But yeah, so 2016 on that. So we got 2009, 1982, 2016 for my first 3.
Cool. Jim.
Okay. So it's funny. These later records in the last 10, 15 years, I think there's a lot of, I think they really, it's kind of like when Judas Priest put out Firepower. It's like, wow, man, this band's been around 40 years and that's what they do. It's amazing. I think these later records all are super quality. I know they started working with Julian Raymond, who's a really good songwriter and producer. And I think obviously that modern production is a big part of their sound now, but they're certainly got way better guitar sounds now than they did way back when. More on that later, but my number 10, I'm going with Rockford. Perfect Stranger. I highlighted the songs I really liked on here. I had to do a lot of listening. I love the fact that they reused two of their song titles on this record. So you have a song called "Come On, Come On, Come On." So they have "Come On, Come On" in color, but "Come On, Come On" and "Eau Claire." It's weird. They reuse song titles, they reuse album titles. It's like they just recycle. But this is a great record. "Perfect Stranger," like I said, it takes a lifetime. "This Time Got You." I tend to like the pop. I don't care about them being heavy. I care about them writing great. You know, I love when they are more Beatlesque. So the more poppy with the Cheap Trick, the better for me. So that's my number 10. My number 9 is "Bang Zoom Crazy Hello." "No Direction Home," I think is one of the best songs they've written in a long time. What a catchy chorus that is. "Blood Red Lips" is a very cool kind of almost like a Slade, has a very glitter rock, that kind of slow boogie kind of feel to it. "Sing My Blues Away" is a great song. "Long Time No See Ya," "The Sun Never Sets," great song. So that's, again, another later period record. They're on a roll, if you ask me, and we'll get to the new one later because that's way higher up on my list. But so that's my number 9. And my number 8, I know a lot of people are going to be really surprised by this, but my number 8 is the debut Cheap Trick record. And I will tell you why. Let's put it this way. Thank God for Tom Werman, because that's a Jack Douglas record. And I don't like the way any of that guy's records sound, but this one especially, it's so raw. It sounds like a demo, and there's great songs on it. I highlighted, see in the middle there, almost all the songs, they're all great. The production is just so cruddy sounding to me. It's so criminally underproduced. So I know every Cheap Trick fan, I was like, that's my favorite Cheap Trick record. I'm just like, not me. Great songs. I wish they had done it with someone else. I wish Tom Werman had his hands on that record, because it just great bass and drum sounds, the rest of it. So great record though, but just the production kind of ruins it for me. So those are my 10, 9, and 8.
Very cool. And not to deviate, but for those of you who are watching this episode and haven't listened to Jim's band Fuzz Bubble, you really need to. If you like Cheap Trick, you will love this band. So their latest album is absolutely terrific. So just want to throw that in there. All right. I had a really hard time with my number 10 because, of course, you got all these really strong albums. And, this was my number 10 all week, and I changed it about an hour ago. I really like this album. I can't say I'm nuts about Todd Rundgren producing Cheap Trick, though. This is one of those albums where I like the songs a lot. I'm not sure I like the way it sounds. It's missing a little bit of the Cheap Trick bite. So that got bumped just an hour ago in favor of Cheap Trick 97, right? Self-titled from 97, their 13th album. I think this is really good. And I'll echo what Steven said earlier. This has been kind of forgotten. They were on Red Ant Records, right? What the hell is, or cheap Red Ant Productions, whatever. This kind of album kind of came and went, which is really sad because there's some really good stuff on here. Anytime, just snarling, crunchy tune. Love it. I love Hard to Tell. I love those Beatles harmonies. This band does those great vocal harmonies so well. Carnival Game is just a really cool breezy pop tune. You Let a Lot of People Down rocks hard. Baby No More is kind of punky, kind of frantic. 8 Miles Low just crushes. I think this is an absolutely strong album, and I really like it a lot. So that's my number 10. Number 9 is 1994's Woke Up with a Monster. Okay, you got Ted Templeman producing, right? They've worked with a lot of great producers. Some have worked, some haven't. One and only album for Warner Brothers, right? It's amazing. They signed to Warner Brothers. They released this album. Tim Templeman produces it, and then you blink and they've already dropped them from the label because it didn't really sell. I think one of the things about this album I think is strange is that they again, this is early on in the whole CD age. And I think, let's put more songs on the album. Let's make the songs a little longer. And I think for me, Cheap Trick are best when their songs are like 2 to like maybe 4 minutes long tops. And here you've got all these songs that are like 4.5, 5 minutes long, maybe a little bit too long for them, but there's some great tracks on here. The title track is just absolutely incredible. My Gang is a great rocker. You're All I Want to Do, totally catchy. Ride the Pony is totally hook laden. Cry Baby, I don't know if I want to hear Cheap Trick doing bluesy stuff, right? So there's a couple misfires on here, but Love for a Minute is great. I think the songs that are really strong on here are really strong. And there's a couple that I'm not that into, but I think the ones that I love so much that's why this is kind of showing up a little high on my list. So that's number 9. And number 8, we're going to go to 1980s, All Shook Up, 5th album. Stephen, I kept this on there for you. Produced by George Martin, again, another famous producer. This is a weird album because when you look at like the ones that came before, a lot of those albums, those early albums, the first 4 have like a lot of real immediate songs and instant hits. This doesn't really have that at all, but I like it because of it. This is a very gritty album. I mean, Just Got Back is awesome. Baby Loves to Rock has kind of got this like 50s kind of feel to it. Can't Stop It, But I'm Gonna Try reminds me of the Babies a little bit, obviously not with John Waite on vocals, but Stop This Game is totally memorable and catchy. That would have sounded great on Dream Police. High Priest of Rhythmic Noise is really odd, but I kind of dig it because they're doing something different. Love Comes a Tumbling Down, high energy, Cheap Trick. A couple tracks I don't really like on here. I Love You Honey, But I Hate Your Friends, I think is really silly, and Go for the Throat, I'm not crazy about either, but the rest of it I think is really, really good. And this is, I think, just a different kind of album from them, but it's serious, gritty, so I dig it. So that's my number 8. And we'll go back to Stephen.
Yeah, I don't want to deviate too far, but it's interesting, Peter, that you mentioned Woke Up with a Monster, because that and the special one that Martin mentioned, they're the only 2 I've ever struggled with. And I still struggle with this one, and it's been interesting because I have read a lot of people say how great this album is, and I still can't quite find it. I don't know what it is about it. There's just something that seems to keep me at arm's length with it. I'll go back and try again. But
it's one of those, I mean, just like I said before, it's one of those examples of an album that I think start to finish is not nearly as strong as a lot of other ones here, but because there's like 4 or 5 songs that I really, really like a lot, it has elevated into my top 10 because I totally agree with that. I don't think it's kind of a spotty album, but what's good on it for me is really good. So that's why it sits there, because there are other albums that I left off my list that I think are stronger top to bottom, but I don't know if I like any of the songs as much as I like a handful of them on that album.
Okay, that makes sense. So my number 7, and it's great to see a lot of love for latter day Cheap Trick coming through, because anyone that is watching that hasn't kept up with what the band are doing, I mean, they've really been missing out.
Yeah.
Because the last, 4 or 5 albums have been really bang, zoom, crazy hello. That's what they've been. They've been really, really good. Yeah. And they seem to have refound themselves, I think. Yeah, I agree with Martin. Julian Raymond's production maybe isn't all that, but he seems to have allowed them to refine themselves. I think he's been a massive part of that journey where they seem to sound like Cheap Trick again. So, they did go through that period where they sounded like a whole lot of different bands being played by Cheap Trick. But here, and on the most albums that he's involved with, which is a lot of them, they sound like Cheap Trick. Yeah, this is the first one where we don't have Bun E on drums. We've got Dax Nielsen. That in itself felt like a bit of a weird move from the outside, but he does a really good job on this. He sounds like the drummer in Cheap Trick without just copying what had happened before. And there's some really good stuff on here. There is a theme in recent albums where they seem to have gone back through the vaults and had a look at things that maybe they had had a go at before or other people had used and thought, we could do this better. Heart on the Line is a great example. I first knew that from being on the House of Lords album, Sahara. Interestingly, it was credited, I think, on that album as being written by Rick Nielsen. Here it's credited to Rick, Greg Gioffria, it's credited to Julian Raymond, the rest of the whole band, including Dax Nielsen. It really isn't all that different, but there you go. It's a really good song, no direction home. It's got a huge big pop hook. It's just too good to ignore. Do You Believe in Me? And that to me proves that this band are not just about that kind of in, out, shout the chorus all about sort of thing. There's lots more going on with this band as well. It's quite technical, some really good guitar work there. Roll Me is classic Cheap Trick, can't talk. And even the cover of Stick Together, which when you see everything else that's there, you think, why would you add that in? Well, because they do it really well. That's why. So number 6 for me is right back to the start. It's the debut. I like the production here. I understand that this is a raw, rocking, heavy band at this stage. I think Jack Douglas does an okay job of harnessing that. And it was what the band seemed to be all about at that point. However, it's still dripping with hooks. There are choruses to die for. You've got Hello Kiddies. Doesn't get any better than that. You've got He's a Whore, Hot Love. But you can already hear why this band are going to confuse so many people, because it's punky, it's rocking, it's popping. It's that kind of millstone that seems to hang around their neck at certain points where, what are they? To them, it doesn't matter. But everybody else seems to get hung up on what type of band Cheap Trick were, you know? Number 5 is Rockford for me, 2006. This is their 14th album. This was the album that kind of said to me, okay, Cheap Trick are back. I like the self-titled album that comes before. Special one doesn't do very much for me at all. But this is just really strong. Oddly, I think it was put together in numerous locations, lots of different producers on the album. They seem to make it, while they were on the move, the tour, it should be incohesive and a mess, and it doesn't sound like that at all. It sounds like a proper album. Welcome to the World, Perfect Stranger, Come On, Come On, Come On, which that is just catchy as hell. That it's as strong as anything else in the band's catalogue for me, those 3 songs together. And the guitar and the vocals seem to have been brought right back to the front, which I really like. They pushed the album along. When this first came out, this was my album of the year. I listened to this a lot in 2006, and it really just captured my imagination. And as I said earlier on, if you haven't delved into latter day, if you can call something that's over 15 years old now, latter day Cheap Trick, then you really should be. And I love the cover too.
Yeah, it's
really like the cover. It's great.
Cool. Yeah, I remember I was like, I kind of stopped listening to the new Cheap Trick music for a while. And I remember the first time I got wind of how great that was, I remember Martin reviewed it on Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles. And then you, of course, spoke highly about it on SOT. And I was like, all right, I got to get back into these guys again. And I was like stupefied by how good that album is. So if that's not a little hint at what's to come here on my list, right? So, all right, back to Hack.
All right. Well, this one's been mentioned before, but the Cheap Trick, the self-titled 1997 record, great songs on here. You know, it's got a little rougher, gruffer guitar, kind of a little maybe grunge flavor on some of the tracks. Anytime is killer. Baby No More, very punky and cool. There's a lot of really great guitar hooks and melodic hooks on pretty much every song in this. There's really not a bad song on this whole record, like top to bottom. It's fantastic. You've got your rock in there. There's some pop. There's some very B-less moments on here. Like most Cheap Trick albums, you know, some examples for pop, Hard to Tell is so cool. Carnival Game, hooky as hell. Shelter's very Beatle-like. Yeah, great riff, cool rocker. Wrong All Along, Straight Up, Cheap Trick, Rock, 8 Miles Low is killer. There's just so many good songs in there. Say Goodbye's a great pop song. So yeah, Cheap Trick 1997. Okay, so that's number 6. This one is also mentioned, I think, All Shook Up 1980. Big reason why this is on my list is, you know, you're mentioning songs that you really like that elevate. And for me, Stop This Game is one of those. That song floors me every time. The way it sounds, the production on it is just fantastic. There's a lot of old timey rock and roll stuff on here, which I normally don't like, but it's so well done and so well produced that I dig it. Like Just Got Back, love that. It's got a killer bridge on it too. I love those, you know, Cheap Trick. They always throw in like a little bit of spice to change things up. Baby Loves to Rock is great. Highlight for me on this, Love Comes Tumbling Down is a fantastic rocker with a very cool and very rare Great Rick Nielsen guitar solo. Hootie King, not a big fan of that, but you know, pretty much a great sounding George Martin production on that. Fantastic sounding record. So that was my number 6, All Shook Up. And number 5, and this one was just mentioned, Rockford. Rockford is fantastic. Kicks off with the very Cheap Trick sounding opener, Welcome to the World. I mean, there's certain songs that are just quintessential Cheap Trick, and that's one of them. You got so many great moments on this. Perfect Stranger, love the guitar on that. It Takes a Lifetime, that chorus is absolutely killer. Eau Claire mentioned again, very Beatlesque, sounds like a Lennon song, so cool. You got great rockers on here, Give It Away, Come On, Come On, Come On. Not a bad song on this record. To me, this record sounds like they're just really reinvigorated, and the songwriting is absolutely, they were on fire making this record. Absolutely excellent record. I highly recommend that. Rockford, 2006, number 5.
You know, one of the things that I was thinking about quite a bit going through and re-listening to all these albums is how good of a guitar player Rick Nielsen is, and how he never comes up in conversations about the great guitar players that have been around for all these years. It's almost like we take him for granted. You know,
Yeah.
you listen to these albums, you're like, man, that's a great solo. Man, that's a great riff. It's like, why does nobody ever talk about Rick Nielsen?
Yeah.
It's a shame.
He's not a forefront guy, right?
The
He's
No, he's not.
personality
He's a
outweighs
song
the,
guy.
you know, the image kind of almost outweighs, you
Absolutely.
know, getting back
Yeah.
to what you were saying, like nobody really knew what they were. Like when I first heard them in like 1978, I actually saw them that year. It was like, okay, what's with the two cool guys and the two geeks on the back cover? You know, it was just like, what is this band? You know, because you know, back then it was just like, okay, if you had long hair, you were a rock band. If you had short hair, you were, you know, something else I wasn't interested in. And it was like, who's the guy from the Satchmo from Satch from the what's the old TV the Bowery Boys. He's
Oh,
like
yes,
the guy
yes.
from the Bowery Boys, right? So I'm like, and the math teacher and the guy from the Bowery Boys and the two rock stars. It was just a very odd, like, are they like a new wave band? Like a hard rock band? And then, you know, I think a lot of that kind of, they're just Cheap Trick, and you don't really think about him, but he is a great guitar player.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. So yeah.
All right, Martin, your next 3.
Okay, so my number 7 is this one here, Dream Police. Okay, with the framed up inner sleeve there,
Nice.
passes in it.
Nice.
So I've got this here because you know, when I go through the tracks on this one, I mean, we're supposed to love this one more, and I'm gonna disagree with Jim on production here. I mean, Tom Werman, he does some cool things, but I don't think the Cheap Trick albums and the Ted Nugent albums sound particularly great. I don't think there's enough top end. I don't think there's enough bottom end. Maybe I'm going the simple version of production and not thinking of arrangement and helping with writing of songs and all that kind of stuff. But never been a big fan of the sound of this one and Heaven Tonight in particular. But Dream Police, definitely one of my favorite songs by this band of all time. It's got some other kind of weird rocking sort of things like Need Your Love and Gonna Raise Hell, kind of weird ones. The House is Rocking's pretty heavy on here as well. But you know, for a classic period album that I'm sure is going to be higher on a lot of lists, I've got it a little bit lower because when I go through the songs on it, I'm not the biggest fan in the world. So next, do I have one here? Maybe I don't have one here. I Heaven Tonight. Why don't I have a Heaven Tonight handy? Oh, okay. Anyways, no, I need this here. Where is it? It's here somewhere. All right. Well, I don't have.
They're holding it up.
So anyways, definitely this is one with a lot better songs, I think, than Dream Police. I love Stiff Competition, and Off Wiedersehen's amazing as well, and even Heaven Tonight itself. So I think this is the one of the two that feel like they're of a pair. They got the same kind of color album cover. I just think it's the one of the classic period there, those kind of 3 in a row that are considered the classic period that has the best songs in total on it. And number 5, I'm going to go with Rockford. I totally agree. I feel like this is the first one. Cheap Trick doesn't feel like it's the first of the modern era. Rockford feels like it's the first of the modern era to me. It's bright. It's got some amazing, well, although Perfect Stranger fits on Cheap Trick from 97 because it's kind of dark and cynical. It's an awesome tune. But yeah, come on. I really like on there. Welcome to the World is great as well. So that's like a big panoramic Phil Spector kind of Cheap Trick song. But yeah, give it away one more time. It's kind of the funky one on there. But yeah, Eau Claire's good, kind of a Beatles-esque thing, but probably I would say, well, judging from my list as well, it's definitely my favorite of where I feel like they take off. And I also think it's the best produced of every single one of them moving forward as well. And I love that album cover and the digipack and all that as well. It's really cool. So let's see, 7, 6, 5. Yeah, I'm done. That's it.
Cool. All right, back to Jim.
Okay, number 7. My number 7 is the 1997 Cheap Trick album. I remember buying it when it came out. It's the first Cheap Trick album I bought in a while. At that time, it's a great album. I mean, the very first song, I love that Bunny Carlos groove he lays down in that song. It's super cool. Hard to Tell, Carnival Games, Shelter. I highlighted songs and all but 2 made the highlight, So, I mean, it all comes back to you. I love that. So it's a great ballad, a great way to end a song. You let a lot of people down. That album is just solid all the way through. It's a great sounding record. I think the production's really good. It's basic in terms of they didn't do a lot of like keyboards and things like that. They kept it a little more guitar oriented and it's pretty raw. It's like of the time, 1997. That sounds about right. They're just kind of keeping it straightforward. Great record, really great record. So let's go my number 6 is One on One from 1982. So many good songs. If You Want My Love, I mean, that's a classic Cheap Trick song. Looking out for number 1, She's Tight. Poison did a great job stealing that riff, made a big song out of it. Love's Got a Hold on Me. One on One's a great record. It's really raw sounding. It's almost like it sounds like after a couple of records of the Tom Werman, they were trying to go back to that raw sound of the first record, but it's better to me. It sounds better to me. It's still very raw and, like you said, kind of punky, but great record. Kind of a little more rocking, like raw and rocking than the ones that came before it. Okay, so that's my number 6. My number 5, All Shook Up from 1980. Stop This Game, amazing. Just Got Back, Baby Loves to Rock, Can't Stop It. All these songs are great. I think where I start to fall off is like the last 3 songs. I Love You Honey, But I Hate Your Friends, not super crazy about it. Go for the Throat, pretty good. Who the King, I don't really like it all. It's one of those, a lot of those early records all have one of those kind of weird songs. Like Gonna Raise Hell is one of those songs. It's like, why is this here? They have a ton of better material than that. But so that's my number 5, All Shook Up. And then are we going to number 4? Or is it 7, 6, and 5? Okay,
Yeah,
so
7, 6, and 5. Yep.
So those are my 3 for the mid period.
Okay, my next 3. Number 7 is their latest, In Another World. This is great. 20th album. It's a belter. I remember when this first came out, I was like, holy cow, this is good. But again, it just reiterates what we've been talking about, how their latter period stuff is really, really strong. I mean, The Summer Looks Good on You, such a killer hard rock opener with a great chorus. There's choruses that you just can't get out of your head all throughout this album. Quit Waking Me Up, what a chorus on that one. It's got that kind of Beatles hook to it. I love the Soaring Another World. Boys and Girls and Rock and Roll is just up tempo, lots of fun. The Party's got some great riffs. Final Days, great guitar solo, great hooks on that. Here's Looking at You, ton of fun, amazing chorus, fun album. And I think, vocally, the band is still firing on all cylinders. It's just that's to me what impresses me the most about this album are the vocals. They're just tremendous. The choruses are great. The backing vocals are great. You know, Robin sounds terrific. Great stuff there. So that's my number 7. Number 6 is 1985 Standing on the Edge. Jack Douglas production here. Pretty rocking album. Right? Got Little Sister is great. Tonight It's You is a fantastic single. I always really like that song. It's just a great pop song from them. She's Got Motion. It's got great rhythms, good hard rocker. How About You is awesome. Title track is nice and heavy. I like nice and heavy Cheap Trick. Rock All Night cranks as well. Cover Girl is a great killer power pop track. And I love the chorus of Wild Wild Women. Love Comes is kind of a crappy song, but the rest of it I think is really strong. So I dig this one. So that's my number 6. And number 5, I'm going to go, I think a few of us picked number 5, Rockford.
Yeah.
This is great. This is great. It's punchy. It's vibrant. Welcome to the World. Killer song. Perfect Stranger. Sounds like it could have come off their first album. I love If It Takes a Lifetime. To me, that's like power pop bliss. It sounds like the Beatles meets the Raspberries. Killer hooks on there. Eau Claire is great. I mean, we've already talked a lot about it. I think it's great. I love the album cover. I love this kind of cool cartoony artwork. And yeah, and again, what I really like about this is it gets Cheap Trick back to doing these like 2 to 4 minute quick little immediate pop songs and pop rock songs. I think that's what they do so well. So really good album. So that's my number 5. Back to Stephen.
Okay, so my number 4 has been mentioned quite a lot already. This is the latest from 2009. I mean, yes, we've all spoken about how good Rockford was. This is the album that followed. And yet there was a danger that it could have been a shambles. You've got a Slade cover. You've got an old track from a Robin Zander 7-inch single. I think they reworked one of their own numbers that was like from a Pepsi advert for this album. Bun E was about to leave. I don't think this even got a proper release in the UK. My version is a Japanese one, because I don't think that they even had any sort of deal whatsoever over here. So I probably spent a fortune on this and was delighted that I did, because I really like it. And the opener, Sleep Forever, is just a beautiful way to start the album. But then When the Lights Go Out and Miss Tomorrow, what a 1-2. That is just absolutely fantastic. I could listen to Miss Tomorrow all day and still want to put it on again tomorrow. It's just so good. But everything here from Sick Man of Europe, this is what I really like about Cheap Trick. It's got the hooks and the pop, but there's a bit of danger there. And it's not all straightforward. I really like it. So my number 3, I've gone for In Colour, 1977, album number 2. I mean, this album cover, that is the definition of cool, isn't it? And then you've got the other guys on the back. Do you know? I just absolutely, I love this juxtaposition. I really
Could you
do.
imagine if the front cover was that? Nobody
Yeah.
would have bought it.
Absolutely.
Or they would have bought it in droves because it's so bizarre looking, right?
I love it. I just love the nerve to do it. I mean, look at it. It's rock and roll cool. It doesn't get any cooler. It's just ridiculous what's on the back, isn't it? It's just so good. And this is the sort of thing with the fact that it really continued. And then once the 4 got back together, even on Lap of Luxury, they're doing it again. This could have broke some bands up when it continued on. Why are we always on black? Because you know they're the interesting guys. You know, they're the interesting guys. Not these ones. They're not the interesting guys. They're the cool, good-looking guys. I'm hanging with these dudes, do you know? But
Such
anyway.
a weird gimmick to have, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason I'm super disappointed that they are not together with Bun anymore, because Dax is a great drummer. Bun has a drumming style to me that's very unique to him. And you know, again, it's the whole part of the image. It's kind of offset now, you know. You don't have the 2 guys, you got the 2 rock stars, Rick Nielsen, and then his son, which is great, but it's just, I miss all of them saying I miss Bun, you know. So
I think we all miss Bun, yeah, but clearly, I mean, I meant to highlight it in one of the earlier albums where they go through, I think it's We're All Right, and you open that up, the digi, and there's pictures from the past, and there's one that says, Meet Cheap Trick, and there's the 3 guys, and they've got a different picture over Bunny's face, and you were like, really, did you really need to go there? Did it need to go that low? But
that's crappy.
Anyway, Yeah, so In Colour is a tremendous album, but it's a crossroads album in many ways because it is still quite angry, it's quite dark, it's quite punky. However, with Tom Werman involved, we know where we're going now. This is a band that's trying to get more notice, you know, and you write a song like Hello There, that is clearly a set opener. It was written as a set opener. That was the whole purpose of that. It works a treat. I Want You to Want Me. I mean, yeah, it's just so good. And yet it's still eclectic. It's a great tool to have. I think it's also maybe not always worked in their favour. A lot of people want a band to be that. This is what my band is, and it's what they're always going to be.
There's that thing you were talking about.
There you go. Thank you, Martin. Yeah, absolutely. There's no need. There's absolutely no need for that, is it? It's cheap. Pardon the pun. That's a cheap trick. It really is. There's absolutely no need for that, is it? You know? But
Yeah, they might have. I think they may have settled down a little bit with him, but maybe that's when they first were
Yeah,
going.
it was
through all
pretty
the-
bad for a while.
Yeah, we're all right, but it wasn't all good at that point. But there you go. See, this to me is the album where you think, well, do you want Cheap Trick to be a punk band? Okay. Do you want it to be a rock band? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. A rock and roll band? Well, why not? Are they a ballad band? I think in a lot of people's eyes they can be, because they've had really big hits that are that kind of thing. They've got some country, they do some AOR. Anyway, what it makes for us, this is just great. You know, you're all talk, clock strikes 10, so good to see you. There's not a foot
Southern
wrong.
Girls.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yes, I'm trying to leave something for other people here. Number 2 is Heaven Tonight. Okay, and I mean, I'm kicking myself for not having this at number 1, but yeah, I had to make a choice more than anything else. You know, this is just dynamite, absolute dynamite. You know, if you're gonna open an album, you open it with Surrender, don't you? That is just the perfect album opener. And it's interesting because Bun E's been mentioned, and I do wonder how many snare skins that man went through. Because I mean, I haven't counted. There are too many songs and too many albums. But I would guess that at least 75% of that man's drum breaks are on the snare drum. It's all about the dynamics. It's all about the feel. They don't, until you listen to it, you don't realize that's what he's doing. You think he's gone round the kit, and he's really not. He's staying in the same place, just doing it really differently. I loved his style. Absolutely loved his style. There's nobody else like him. But if you're going to start an album well, then you end side 1 with A Vida Zen. That to me that's my favourite Cheap Trick song. It's dirty and it's dangerous, and when you've got a beautiful singer like Robin Zander, that he can add that snarl to the concoction, he's just a dream, really. Everywhere you turn, this is stupidly good. California Man, it's just such a good song. High Roller has that kind of musical aloofness that the title alludes to. Everything here, from the kind of fabulously dreamy, lyrically sinister title track, and the ramshackle unlisted Eau Claire, another one. Oh, phenomenal stuff. Absolutely great. It should be my number 1. It's not, and there's a reason for that.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, Hack, your next 3.
All right, so this one's already been talked about, but my number 4 is Dream Police, 1979. That's the first of the 70s records to make my list. I mean, title track, Dream Police, it's, if not their best song, like top 5 for sure. Way the World is Killer, Writing on the Wall. I know what I want, and what I want is Robin to sing that song, because it would have been a hell of a lot better. But for me, the best song on the record is Voices. Voices is got that fantastic Beatles, ELO even, kind of vibe to it. And I really dig that. But yeah, Dream Police, killer album. 1979. Number 3, also just mentioned, In Color. 1977, another from the classic 70s output. Hello There, killer concert opener. I mean, that's what it was there for, and that's what they did. And opened many shows with that. I mean, you got Big Eyes, Oh Caroline, Clock Strikes 10, Southern Girls, Come On. My personal favorite on that is, I absolutely love the song Downed. It has that sort of that Dear Prudence, like descending guitar line that Rick uses a lot, that type of idea. Just, it's a fantastic song. Yeah, and this is it has the very pedestrian version of "I Want You to Want Me" on it, which is actually one of the lesser songs on this record. Just a great classic record, top to bottom. It's got all their, it's like their greatest hits, really, in color. And my number two is "Heaven Tonight." Also, just like in color, it's got, this was mentioned before. You get the two pretty boys on the front and the other guys on the back. But I mean, it's a home of surrender. California Man, of Vita Zane, Taking Me Back, Stiff Competition, great rocker with a really cool riff. I love the Beatle like "How Are You," and again another Beatle vibe to that. Yeah, I mean it's ranked so high because it's got all these killer songs on it. These are like greatest hits. And the next one I'll be mentioning, but yeah. So for my number three, I got "Heaven Tonight," 1978. Or no, that was my number two. Sorry. Yeah. So four was "Dream Police," 79 in color. Number three, 77. "Heaven Tonight," number two, 78.
And I agree. I think the better "I Want You to Want Me" is from Budokan.
Oh, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
Well, who on this panel heard the Budokan version first, right? Not you, Martin?
No.
Okay, so when you hear the Budokan version first and then you go back to that, you're like, wow, tap
Yeah.
piano, like what is going on here? It's
Yeah.
almost like a different song.
Yeah.
But I like it as a different song in its own right. It's like a different song. It's sort of like they covered like the studio versions, like they went and covered it. It was like done by a different band.
Mhm.
It sounds like it's done by a different band, and they covered it for their live album and just said, we'll just make it more rock. It's weird. I love both versions, but I love that version too. I love the studio version. So
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
just talking about Tony Carlos and the snare. Listen to the intro to that song.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that intro is absolutely killer. Like I cover that song with my cover band, and the way it kind of builds up, right? It just, yeah. I mean, Surrender's another one. I mean, it's got all these really cool, and they're not, it's a feel thing. It's not like it's a crazy technical thing. It's all about feel and groove with that guy. He's a fantastic drummer. I was always been a big fan of
His playing's remarkably tight without
Oh,
ever
yeah.
feeling stayed. There's a looseness and a feel that is so natural, and he's
Yeah.
just playing, but he's so tight. He's so on it all the time, and that really appeals to me. Really like it.
well, he has a very specific thing that he does that we've adopted into Fuzz Bubble, which is it's those freight train beats where he's riding and he's snare on every beat. He does it on the tom-tom. He'll do it on the hi-hat. You watch his left hand, it's going like if he's playing eighth notes, it sounds like a freight train. And like that "I Want You to Want Me" thing is like a shuffle thing. And we steal that for the beginning of one of our songs too. When we play it live,
Jim.
everyone thinks we're going to play "I Want You to Want Me," and we go into a Fuzz Bubble song called "Zero Superstar," and people are like, wait, what? Because it's the same kind of beat. But he's got a lot of. He's also one time he decided that he was going to start playing lefty, and he just started playing lefty. I mean, Bun is amazing. He's completely underrated as a drummer. So,
Jim, I think you mean Steam Train. If you think
Steam
about
Train.
it, that wheel going around,
Yeah.
with the wheel.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Like, I know what you mean.
uh,
It's like he will do the grace notes on the snare all the time, kind of thing.
Right. It's and
Yeah.
only I've not seen anybody else do that but him, where he's playing the same notes as a hi-hat and just accenting the 2 and 4 where it normally would be, but it's a whole sound of his that's just Bunny Carlos.
Yeah.
So
Cool. All right, Martin.
All right. I just wanted to mention also that that whole "I Want You to Want Me" thing is similar to "We Will Rock You" on News of the World, and then "We Will Rock You" as a metal song on Live Killers, right?
different
Yep,
songs.
exactly.
different
Yep.
Same
songs.
kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. So my number 4, I'm going with 1997's. This is the record label thingy for it. The Cheap Trick Red Ant album. Really love this. Rockford, like I say, is my favorite of the new era. This feels like of no era. It doesn't feel like Standing on the Edge or Woke Up with a Monster, which feel isolated to me. This feels isolated to me as well. It is dark and gritty. I like, Jim, the way you pointed out that it's not very keyboardy, but yeah, anytime just sets this strange kind of, again, cynical mood, cranky mood. You know, this undercurrent of this narrative that you hear about the Cheap Trick guys, that they can be a little cranky and reclusive. But yeah, Love Hard to Tell. Shelter is this like heartbreaking sort of ballad thing on it as well. And you let a lot of people down, as again, it's like Anytime and Perfect Stranger, that same sort of thing, right? Where Robin, he sounds angry and he's got that Roger Daltrey roar that he puts on, right? So yeah, I just thought when this thing came out, just loved it start to finish. I just thought it was a really a return from any of the trappings of being way too overproduced that you got in the corporate 80s sort of thing, which is why, you know, those later ones I've kind of checked out on those later ones after basically all shook up. So my number 3 is Next Position Please. Love it to death. Love the Todd Rundgren production on it. I think it's their lightest album where they consciously say, let's not really put anything too heavy on it. I think I Can't Take It and Next Position Please would be in my top 5 Cheap Trick songs of all time. Dancing the Night Away, I don't mind because I love the Motors so much. And I think it's just so cool that they covered the Motors on here. But yeah, Younger Girls is great too. Heaven's Falling is also that chorus on that. Amazing chorus. There's some of that the high notes on the bass that you hear on this album as well that are pretty key from John Brandt, Tom's replacement on here. But yeah, just start to finish, I think this is one of the easy drinking sort of Cheap Trick albums. It's super friendly. And then my number 2, I went with the Debut. And again, I'll disagree with Jim that the production never really bothered me on this. I know what you mean about it being raw. It's fairly raw, I guess, but it does have some bottom end and it's got enough high end. I think it's got enough brightness to the mids, wherever those mids are. They might be like higher mids sort of thing, but I think it's vital sounding is what I like about it. And I love the songs.
Bass sound. The bass sound on that record.
Okay, yeah. Great. You mean bass guitar or bass
guitar? Bass guitar.
Okay. Yeah. And you know, I saw them on this tour. We had a family vacation. We went across Canada. I was from BC, but I saw them backing up Kiss on the Love Gun tour in Montreal. Oh, and my funny story is that you know, we're just driving around in the family van or whatever, and there's Tom Peterson and Robin Zander getting into a limousine. It's like first time I ever saw like rock stars on a non-stage situation. But no, so technically I'm not positive. It might even been the In Color tour, because aren't they both 77 albums, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe In Color was out by then. Anyways, love this album to death. I think it has so much personality and so interesting, so Who-like at times as well. Yeah, Hot Love, really punky, and Hello Kitties. It's got that Bun E shuffle sort of thing going to it. Taxman, Mr. Thief, just good kind of poppiness. Ballad of TV Violence is dark. He's a Whore is like punk essentially. Yeah, everything about this album, I think it just has a ton of personality. They're really weird songs. This feels like an album to me of a band that has had these songs sitting around for a long time, and they really know which ones work, and they've played them live. God knows what band name they played them under. But it just seems like songs that have been worked in, and we know it's almost like a greatest hits album, I think, of whatever they grew up, you know, writing, probably starting in 1970. Kind of thing. So that's what I love about that one. So yeah, that's my 4, 3, 2.
Cool. Jim.
Okay. Yeah, I have no complaints about the songs on that record. It's just the sound of it that bugs me. That's an amazing record. And I think to me, the real punk sound, part of the sound of Cheap Trick is Tom Peterson's bass sound and the way he plays. He's super aggressive, and it's no more evident than on that record. So yeah. I agree. It's a great record. So it would have been higher on my list if not for the sound of it. Okay, so my number 4 is 1977 In Color. And if you look at my highlighted songs on my list, every song is highlighted. It probably should be higher up on the list, but either way, every song on this record is great. The production's a little tame compared to the Heaven Tonight coming after it. But I mean, you have all those great songs. Hello There, Big Eyes, Downed. I Want You to Want Me, with the tack piano, a completely different version of the song than we hear later. That most of the world gets introduced to with Cheap Trick, which is the live Budokan version. You're All Talk, Oh Caroline, great song. Clock Strikes 10. Southern Girls and Come On, Come On, probably definitive power pop songs for me. Both so great, and So Good to See You ends the record. Great record, in color. Again, the stark difference between the two guys on the cover, you know, Robin and what is this? Tom
Tommy.
Peterson, sorry, and Bun E and Rick on the back. A bit confusing if you're a teenager in 1977 or 78, trying to figure out what this band sounds like by looking at the cover. You're like, huh, the two geeks on the back and the two cool guys on the front. Like, does that mean it's only half good? I don't know. But that we get kind of introduced to that, what really Cheap Trick is right there with that cover. So fantastic album all the way through. So that's my number 4. My number 3 is In Another World. When that record came out last year, or end of 2021, or whenever it came out, The Summer Looks Good on You. I mean, immediate, should have been a song that was on the radio all summer long. It was a perfect single. Quit Waking Me Up is probably my favorite song on the record. You know, that Beatlesque kind of got to get you into my life type of thing. The ballad version of Another World's great, and then they reprise it later with a really super great rocking version. Boys and Girls and Rock and Roll, super cool song. So It Goes, an amazing ballad. Total standout ballad for Cheap Trick for me. Light at the Fire, super great rocking song. Here's Looking at You. Great. Another World, the rocking reprise version of it. And I even like the John Lennon cover, Give Me Some Truth. Really cool. Not a far cry for Cheap Trick to be doing a Beatles song, as we know. So that's my number 3, In Another World. Proof that a band going on over 40 years can make a record as great as their first, classics. So
Yeah.
if you guys, anyone out there is thinking about going to see Cheap Trick when they come around and play live, please do, because they're still amazing. So my number 2, and this was hard because I thought it was going to be my number 1, but it's my number 2 for a couple of reasons, is Dream Police. And going back to what Pete said about some records, like the good songs on the record are so good that you're like, okay, this is it. Like I said, it was my number 1 until I thought about there's 2 songs on this record that are just okay to me. But Dream Police is probably, to me, one of the quintessential power pop songs ever. Super catchy, that great middle section with Rick. The keyboards just done the right way. Super amazing song. I mean, it's iconic. The video's iconic. The album cover's iconic. The song is iconic. Boom. Way of the World, one of my favorite Cheap Trick songs again. They have a couple of songs like this, like Writing on the Wall is similar kind of tempo wise. But that great refrain at the end, world goes round, that's classic Robin Zander vocalizing right there. And so great. The House is Rocking, great. It's got that steam train, Martin, that steam train kind of beat that I love. That like I said, we've stolen and adopted that into Fuzz Bubble all over the place. That where you're kind of ghost noting on the snare drum. It's a signature Bunny Carlos thing, and it's part of their sound. So awesome. I'll Be With You Tonight. Again, just amazing, amazing song. And Voices. I mean, what can you say about Voices?
Yeah.
As soon as you hear it, you just like, the hair stands up on the back of your neck,
Yeah.
incredible. Writing on the Wall, another one of those up-tempo songs, super great. I Know What I Want. I mean, come on, super hooky, the super iconic. The two songs for me that I wish, like, I like Need Your Love, I do. Gonna Raise Hell. I wish they had taken a different song from that period, like Everything Works If You Let It, which is on no album and is probably in my top 5 favorite Cheap Trick songs. I'm going to guess they may have had it written by then. I wish they had put that instead of Gonna Raise Hell, because Gonna Raise Hell is 9 minutes of, wow, I wish they used a different song.
Yeah, I agree.
And I found out a little bit of history about that song. The reason they did that song is they wanted to do an extended dance remix song like Kiss did with I Was Made for Loving You, which is one of my most hated Kiss songs, ruined them. And the fact that they use that as the inspiration for Raise Hell, kicks it even further down the list for me. So I like Need Your Love. It's just kind of long and kind of slow, but Gonna Raise Hell, like, even though it has good moments, I could do without it. I wish they'd put a different song on there. So that's my number 2, Dream Police. It was going to be my number 1 because of the greatness of the great songs on that record, but my number 1 is kind of, well, I'll get to that when I get to it. So that's my number 2, Dream Police.
By the way, you mentioned Cheap Trick, going to see them out on tour. I just heard that they're going to be opening up for Rod Stewart, I think, for a bunch of summer dates this year. So kind of a weird pairing, I think, but maybe
That's a bit strange.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah. And I'm assuming it's going to be a Rod Stewart classic stuff and not Rod Stewart playing like the oldies covers type of thing, which he's been doing for many, many years. I've never seen Rod Stewart. So they're playing at the old Woodstock at Bethel Woods. And I'm thinking, I may want to go to this because I don't know. We'll see. And for everybody watching too, we had an internet outage on my end. So if you see all of a sudden a kind of glitchy segue and everybody in the different Zoom configuration on your screen, that's why. So apologize for that. So all right,
headroom.
Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden everybody moves around like, whoa, what just happened there, right?
We all have long beards now because you were away for so long.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so my number 4, I'll go through mine pretty quickly. My top 4 were pretty predictable, but I think my number 1 was always going to be my number 1. It was 2, 3, and 4, which I had a hard time with. So after a while, I kept moving them around. I was like, whatever, Number 4, Heaven Tonight. I mean, Surrender is an all-time classic. I still think I like the live version a little bit better, but man, there's such great stuff on here. California Man, Taking Me Back, man, Top of the World, Off Wiederhausen. I mean, it's great. We know how great it is. So I won't go too much into more detail there. Number 3 is In Color. Second album, Hello There, is absolutely terrific. And what an opener. It's a great album opener. It's a great concert opener. Big Eyes is great. Clock Strikes 10 Down. I mean, come on. Southern Girls, awesome. And my number 2 is Cheap Trick, the debut. I love the rawness of it. I love the songs. It's energetic. It's crunchy. It's punky. It's heavy. It's poppy. It's everything that they do great. I love Rick's guitar tone. I think it's pretty ferocious on here. I like the pacing of the album. Taxman, Mr. Thief, Daddy Should Have Stayed in High School, so much fun. L.O. Kitties. I mean, just, yeah. Oh, Candy, He's a Whore. Mandocello is just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, yeah, great album. Yeah. So that's my number 2. So back to our number 1s.
Yeah, well, worth mentioning beforehand, though, that I had a really difficult time choosing a 10 here. So I am delighted that this panel has been quite eclectic in what we've chosen, because there's albums that I desperately wanted to talk about that I haven't managed to squeeze into my top 10 that have been highlighted. I'm not surprised, because this catalogue is really strong. There are a couple of less strong in there, but right across the board, this is really strong. This has been one of the more difficult assignments I've ever had. And yet, this was always going to be my number 1, because I just love this album. Absolutely love it. I just think, the title track is pop rock perfection. The keys that open the whole thing up are just Thank you, Pete.
It's a Cheap Trick classic. See,
There you go. See,
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Dream Police is a perfect song.
You
I
would
will
never have
agree with
known
you.
without the hype sticker. That's why it's there to tell you. But I think it's great. The whole band are great here. Everything just works. Everything comes together phenomenally well. You've got one of rock's best vocalists here. You've got one of the best rhythm sections here. You've got one of the best guitarists here. And they're all given the chance to show that. But they're given the chance to show that with hooks and with choruses. I can't believe the amount of stick that Gonna Raise Hell has received. Gonna Raise Hell. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a really great song. And I'm going to defend
4
it.
minutes. At 4 minutes. But at
Yeah.
9 minutes,
No.
You can't have too much of a good thing. Yeah, I'll agree. If you cut it in half, I wouldn't really be complaining too much.
I'd like it a lot better.
I'll take the 1 minute and 1 second album opener version.
Okay. I'm out on a limb here. I understand that. I really like that song. But I love the attitude, and I Know What I Want. That is so good. But then you counterpoint that with the Beatles' inflections of voices, the kind of theatrical, dramatic way of the world. I think this has got everything on it. It's such a good album. And then you package it in a ridiculously, sublimely awesome album cover. And you just have the whole thing. It's got everything that you could possibly ask for. It's
Again,
just
with the cop uniforms, right? With the badge, holding up the badges.
I love the whole thing. I just think that these photo shoots just say everything you need to know about the band as well. You know, it's ridiculous and over the top and stupid, but they're all taking it really seriously. Everyone's on board. I just love it. Yeah. Dream Police, 1979, album number 4. It's my number 1.
Martin.
I
Sorry,
think
Hack.
Hack goes
I
next.
I lost track of the direction with Hack. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Well, my number 1, and it's pretty obvious for me anyway. And it was when we did a show on this a while back. It was still my number 1. I mean, the first album, the debut in 1977, one of the best debut albums ever. Martin was saying this, and I agree. These are songs that have been sitting on the shelf for a long time, and these guys, I think, were fully formed by the time they recorded this record. They were already Cheap Trick. They weren't, doing a couple albums trying to discover who they were. These guys were Cheap Trick right out of the gate, and everything that they kind of did for this record, you could kind of see like the seeds sort of being sown in this record. This was like the blueprint for everything that was coming. The mix of, the garage band, punk, a little bit of pop, some rock with some splashes of Beatles. It's like it already starts on this record. Let's Speak Now, Forever, Hold Your Peace, the Terry Reid cover. It's got a very punk feel. I like the guitars on this record. I like the sort of the rawness of them. I kind of like the production of this record overall because it is very raw sounding. You got a perfect power pop song of He's a Whore. Another killer track, Old Candy, the Ballad of TV Violence, straight up rock track, or Daddy Should Have Stayed in High School. You even got Cry Cry. There's your, that's a John Lennon song. That's all Beatles all over that, But I don't know. I like the sound of it. I like that it's kind of ragged sounding, a little rough sounding. It's got the kind of the garage feel about it a little bit, and it's just a great package of awesome material. And Cheap Trick. Cheap Trick was Cheap Trick right out of the gate, I think.
Yep.
And that record proves it. It's still my favorite. So there you go.
Cool. Martin.
Well, before I go on, I just wanted to mention, anytime I talk about Cheap Trick, I always want to mention this because it's so awesome. The idea that my 2 favorite Rick Nielsen songs ever written are on Rick Derringer's Guitars and Women album. They're so heavy too. So on that, check out It Must Be Love and Need a Little Girl Just Like You. And, come to think of it, the whole rest of that album sounds like a really, really good Cheap Trick album. So that's a great album to check out. But yeah, 2 songs written exactly only by Rick Nielsen, and they're both like pretty heavy metal. So it's kind of cool. So speaking of heaviness, so my choice for number 1 is All Shook Up. I love this record. I feel like it is the fourth of the classic period, because it feels like it doesn't feel particularly like a George Martin album, other than maybe Stop This Game and all the production on that. But it sounds like a much improved Tom Werman kind of album, where it does have a little more bottom end. The guitars are a little higher in the mix. It is a little heavier overall. And speaking of that, even things like Just Got Back, which is kind of rockabilly-ish and shuffly-ish, it's a pretty heavy song. And I actually don't mind I Love You Honey, but I Hate Your Friends, because it is, again, pretty heavy. And I agree the last couple are, let it down a little bit, Go for the Throat and Who to King. But yeah, good ballad and World's Greatest Lover. Stop This Game would be top 5 for me, definitely from this band. Can't Stop It, But I'm Gonna Try, that really kind of impassioned sort of chorus on it. So to me, this is like their if there's something kind of stadium rock that's missing from In Color, Heaven Tonight, and Dream Police, I think it's on this one. It was considered a little bit of a letdown for the band, and it stopped their momentum a little. It might be a little bit too much production. There's too much in it. And like I say, it doesn't sound particularly like a George Martin sound or a George Martin philosophy. It just seems like a fussy and slightly heavier Cheap Trick album, which is fine by me. So I think this is where they end the classic period, and they try all these other experiments, some working quite well, some others, before you get back to the modern era Cheap Tricks. So yeah, there you go. That's my number one. All shook up.
Martin, do you hear any similarities on his production on this album to the album he worked with UFO on? Because I do.
Yeah, do you? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're both Air Studios, although most of the UFO is Air Montserrat, and this is mostly Air London, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I do hear the fact, number one, neither of them sound like George Martin.
Exactly.
Particularly,
yeah,
exactly. That's
yeah.
the big one. And what was the other thing he produced around this time? There was something else around here by some other band. I can't remember what it is, but yeah, it's I think it's just a good quality, pretty rocking album, as is that UFO. And that UFO album I rank as my favorite UFO album of all time.
That's why I brought it up. Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Which one
has
is
No Place to Run.
No Place to Run.
No Place to Run. I love that record.
So
That's
good.
a great record.
Yeah. But
Saw them on that tour.
check out that entire Derringer album though, because it's and it's funny. Derringer has early ones like Sweet Evil, like that you might line up against the first Cheap Trick or whatever, or Aerosmith. But that Guitars and Women album, that's when, well, even if I wasn't so romantic, I'd shoot you, or weren't so romantic or whatever. That's kind of playful and cheap tricky. But Guitars and Women, wow, I think of that title track and those songs written by Rick Nielsen. I would love to see Cheap Trick go in and redo that album. There's a crazy idea for you, right, Pete? We're talking about crazy ideas. I would love to see a Cheap Tricks version of the Guitars and Women album. They've done it with Sgt. Pepper, so go do it with Guitars and Women, guys. That would be awesome.
What year was that album?
79.
79.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
So guys, if you're listening, go give it a try.
Yeah.
I never really listened to that record. So,
all right, Jim, what do you got for number one?
okay, my number one, I guess, will be no surprise. And I struggled because up until this morning or yesterday, Dream Police was my number one. And then I started looking at the song list, and I'm like, Heaven Tonight's got to be my number one. I mean, Surrender, Dream Police, and Surrender are, I don't know which one is the more definitive power pop song, because Surrender is about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Right down to, got my Kiss records out, and he would throw the Kiss records out. When I saw him, he did it a bunch of times. But again, if you highlight the list, the song highlights every song. Every fucking song on this record is great. On Top of the World, California Man, it's a Move song. And I love the fact that they did way later on, a couple of years ago, they did Blackberry Way on, I think it's We're All Right, I think, on that record, which is one of my favorite Move songs. But California Man, you just heard it and said, oh, it's a Cheap Trick song, until you looked at who wrote it. And it's like, no, it's a Roy Wood song. High Roller, great song. Auf Wiedersehen, obviously amazing. Taking Me Back. All of these songs are so catchy on the radio, so catchy. Heaven Tonight, so moody and beautiful, and that whispering and the vocal and everything, just Stiff Competition. classic Cheap Trick, almost like a first album style Cheap Trick song. You know what I mean? How Are You? Sounds like they were trying to do like, okay, I Want You to Want Me didn't become a hit. Let's try it again and do How Are You this time. Very similar, even back down to the production and all of that. And then Eau Claire is just a weird little ending thing, but and it became their concert opener, right? As they sped it up, but this album, I mean, top to bottom, great, amazing songs. Cheap Trick, like really becoming the Cheap Trick we know and love, and then taking it one further. I think Heaven Tonight and Dream Police, and I've used this analogy with you, Martin, at I think we were talking about Blue Oyster Cult. This is their Rubber Soul and Revolver, right? Similar looking covers, the same era, the same kind of sound, Tom Werman. But just for Surrender alone, probably one of the greatest songs ever written. Alone on that, and all of those other songs added to it. Not a bad one in the bunch. So Heaven Tonight is my number one. It was Dream Police until I went back and really evaluated, and I'm like, nope. 9 minutes of Gonna Raise Hell puts that in the number 2 slot, even though the rest of the song record is so great. So Heaven Tonight, 1978.
Well, I personally love the heavy metal meets disco sounds of Gonna Raise Hell. So of course, like Steven, when I sat down to do this exercise, I put this in at number 1 right off the bat because I knew that was going to be it. This is, for many of us, the first Cheap Trick album we ever bought was Budokan, right? Because I honestly never even heard of Cheap Trick till the Budokan album came out, and then I bought that because everybody said you have to buy that. And then the next, and then that was right around, and this came out right, not long afterwards. And so I bought this, and then I went and got the rest of the albums that came before it. But I've always loved this album. I love the title track. Way of the World is so catchy. I like Need Your Love. I think, again, could those 2 songs been trimmed a little bit? Perhaps, but I don't really mind them too much. I Know What I Want is so great. The House is Rocking is just absolutely raging. I love this album. I think Robin is singing up a storm on this album. I love the guitar tones on this album. I love the mix of pop and heavy rock and metal and that little smidgen of disco and a little bit of punk. And it's just, to me, and the packaging is great. Always love the album cover and the inside and everything like that. So this is just, I think, Cheap Trick fully realizing who they are. I think when this album came out, they said, okay, we did lots of business with Budokan, but now we're going to prove that we can do another studio album that's going to stand on its own, and this totally did. So that's my number 1.
Right on.
I leant over to get that. There you go.
There we go. All right.
That's the Rick Derringer album that Martin was talking about. And the reason that it was just a hand there was because, having listened to all of this Cheap Trick music, I was driven to go and listen to this album again. So there you go. I'm in complete agreement.
Yeah.
I never owned it, but I remember when that came out. That did fair amount of business for him, right? If I remember correctly. That was.
I remember the song "Guitars and Women" was on the radio for a little bit.
Yeah.
They had the 2 Derringer albums, and then the band was radically changed. And then they did another Derringer album, the one with the bullseye. If I weren't so romantic, I'd shoot you. But that's a trio with Myron Grombacher. So Vinny Appice, he's gone. So they have 3 Derringer studio albums plus a Derringer live album. But that, there you go. But that Guitars and Women is a Rick Derringer album.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
So Derringer was a group, and then he just put his name on it. Interesting.
Cool. I'll have to go check that out because I don't know if I've ever heard the whole thing. So awesome.
Good. You'd like it.
Yeah, I'm sure I would. I like most of this stuff anyway. Great guitar player. So there you have it, everybody. Our top 10 Cheap Trick albums. And as you can see, a lot of variety here. I think we covered most of the catalog. There's probably a couple that didn't get mentioned, but those obviously are probably the lesser ones. But I think we covered all the ones that are well worth your while. So everybody who's watching, your assignment now is to rank your top 10 or top 5 or whatever you want to do. Down below Stephen and Martin, somewhere there in the comments, do that. And while you're at it, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. So stay tuned next week, a week from today. I'll be having Mr. Jamie Laszlo coming on the Ranking the Album show, and I think you can pretty much guess what we're going to be doing, right? We will be ranking the albums of Pat Benatar, so that's coming up a week from today. So stay tuned for that, and I want to thank this great crew that we assembled here today. We survived the internet outage and we finished up. So thanks to Martin and Steven, Hack, and Jim. I am Pete. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you soon here on Sea of Tranquility. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.